Hi everyone, this is Balázs from RacingBrick. After the previews and my first thoughts about Smart Play, I finally have some sets in hand. This fancy box was provided by LEGO and it contains two of the three sets that include the Smart Brick, the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter. I bought the other two myself, the AT-ST and the Millennium Falcon. Since these sets are not available in Hungary, I ordered them from Amazon Germany. Today I'm going to build these four sets and test the Smart Play functions. I'm also planning more videos later about the technical aspects of the system, exploring customization, testing the limits, and sharing my thoughts about the potential future of Smart Play. But today we will focus on the sets you see here. Before we begin, a quick note: Smart Play triggered some strong reactions in the comments under my previous videos, so let's set some ground rules. You are welcome to share your thoughts about these sets and about Smart Play in general, positive or negative, as long as the discussion stays civilized and focuses on LEGO, not on each other. I will share my own impressions as well. I had some positive surprises, some disappointments, and interestingly, my opinion doesn't overlap that much with the general feedback I've seen so far. So let's start with the X-Wing. The box opens like this, with a nice insert holding the Smart Brick. I have to admit, I expected the brick to do something right out of the box, but apparently not. We get the charger in a separate cardboard box and the cable in another bag. Since the brick needs charging anyway, it makes sense to plug it in while building the set. And yes, apparently it's alive. Inside, we also get several manuals and a dedicated Smart Play guide. The experience is supposed to be completely screen-free, LEGO emphasized that everywhere, but there is also a companion app. I installed it out of curiosity. At the moment, it doesn't really do much, which honestly seems intentional. The most useful feature is adjusting the Smart Brick's volume, and you can turn it down quite low, which is great. You can also check the charging status and update the brick if necessary. There's a troubleshooting section as well, but for actual play the app isn't required. Now let's start building. The side builds in this set are very simple and straightforward. The only interesting element here is the firing mechanism. It's a small Technic assembly with a rubber element pulling it back to its default position. We also get this new pedal piece with a cross-axle connection that later triggers the Smart Brick's color sensor. The X-Wing itself is very simple to build, it is a 6+ set after all. What I really like here is the firing mechanism. It uses a Technic shock absorber connected only at one end. The internal assembly slides back and forth, and the trigger pushes it forward using the matching slope element. Once everything is locked in place with this frame, the mechanism becomes incredibly smooth. I really like how it works. The wings are simple but posable, which fits a 6+ set perfectly. Next up is the TIE Fighter. The box layout is very similar, but the base build feels a bit more complex. This set is rated 8+, and we get brackets and some Technic reinforcement on the other side. The firing mechanism follows the same concept as the previous set. Some Technic pins here actually serve as structural elements, which is pretty cool. There are also some nice examples of 3-dimensional building techniques for reinforcement. This clip connection method is also clever, and here we get a printed tile instead of a sticker. The wings fold into position using these rails, and the two small side builds complete the set. Next, we have the largest set without a Smart Brick, the Millennium Falcon. The box says Smart Brick compatible, which sounds good, but since the brick isn't sold separately, the only way to use it here is to borrow one from another set that you also have to buy. Inside we find quite a few bags, a base familiar from LEGO art sets, a small sticker sheet and a thick manual. The base is extended with Technic pins and bricks all around, and I really like the Millennium Falcon shaped pattern hidden in the middle, a nice Easter egg. This element here appears to be a new piece designed specifically for Smart Play. It's included in 3 of the sets. There is also another Technic rubber element, but this platform is more flexible than the trigger mechanisms we saw earlier. The arch assembly is mostly built sideways. Then we had another variation of the firing trigger using the pedal pieces. At first I wasn't sure what this module was for. Later it becomes clear, this movable platform holds the smart tag for the hyperdrive. We also get a storage solution for the usual green hammer, and this section connects to the main build using Technic pins. On the other side there's another hidden accessory. Now it's time to apply the 4 stickers. After adding this weird looking headpiece, the final step is closing the build with panels. First the center section, then the rest of the shell using clever Technic connections. A few final panels here and there, and the Millennium Falcon is finished. Now let's open the last set. We get a speeder with the familiar firing mechanism. The main build actually contains more Technic elements than anything we've seen so far, which I didn't expect. The way the cockpit is assembled is really cool though. It uses ball joints everywhere and practically folds together like origami. Then we add the top part and the ATST is finished. So, now we have all 4 sets completed and the smart bricks are fully charged, it's time to test the system. Smart Play has 3 main components: the smart brick, smart minifigures and smart tags. The smart minifigures look almost identical to regular ones, except that you cannot separate the legs and the torso. The head still comes off though. There's also a noticeable print on the back and smaller prints on the sides. You might not notice them immediately, but once you see them you can't unsee that every smart minifigure basically has a little garbage bin under the arm. Smart tags look like regular red 2x2 tiles with printed icons showing their function. The smart brick wakes up when you shake it. You hear a notification sound and see a blinking light. Without other components nearby, it won't do anything. You need a tag or smart minifigure close to it. Let's put it in the X-Wing. There's an initial sound, but if you don't move the ship, you will only see this constant blinking. This blinking is actually required for the color sensor to work. The brick doesn't rely on ambient light, the LED provides consistent lighting so the sensor can read colors even in darkness. From a technical perspective that's clever, but from a user perspective it can be quite irritating, especially in a darker room. The LED is extremely bright. If you accidentally look directly into it, it can actually hurt your eyes. But let's take off. The X-Wing engine sounds change depending on the movement and stop when the ship stops moving. There are also some subtle light effects, although they are easy to miss because of the constant blinking. The firing mechanism works through the color sensor. When the base slides forward, the sensor detects the red elements and triggers the firing sound. Interestingly, there's no light effect during the shot, which would actually make perfect sense. Now let's add Luke. As soon as the smart minifigure sits in the cockpit, it starts talking. Well, talking in classic LEGO minifigure language, basically gibberish sounds. A lot of people complain about this online, but honestly I'm fine with it. Minifigures don't really speak in LEGO video games either. The smart brick doesn't store pre-recorded sounds. Instead, sounds are generated by a synthesizer based on commands stored in the minifigure or the tag. That actually makes the system much more flexible. With Luke in the cockpit, we now hear both the X-Wing engine sounds and Luke's reactions. If we add R2-D2 as well, things get more interesting. R2-D2 has a tag which makes his appearance slightly awkward, but at least his head rotates. Now, 3 elements influence the smart brick: the X-Wing tag, Luke and R2-D2. Interestingly, R2-D2 tends to dominate the sound mix here. We can also refuel the ship using this blue tile, and we can repair it with the green hammer. So let's see some other examples. If you place the smart brick on the radar platform, we hear the corresponding sounds. If Leia joins the scene, she starts talking as well. Since this tag doesn't require color input, the annoying blinking stops. However, this also means you cannot do any reparations here with the hammer. If we add R2-D2, he joins the conversation too. Luke can also interact here, so experimenting with combinations becomes part of the gameplay. The transporter vehicle has its own sounds, although the driver is a regular minifigure and doesn't affect the system. Interestingly, the transporter can refuel itself and can also be repaired. There are also some small Easter eggs. For example, if Leia rides the transporter, it plays a familiar musical theme. The last element here is the Imperial turret. You can mount the smart brick on top and fire. Both the turret and the X-Wing also include classic stud shooters, so you can combine virtual and physical action. The TIE Fighter works in a very similar way, just with different sounds. But this set only includes one smart tag and one smart minifigure, which limits the interaction options quite a bit. Another thing I noticed is that a single smart minifigure on its own doesn't do much. If Vader stands next to the brick, you hear a sound once and that's it. Even if Luke joins and they start fighting, the reactions are very inconsistent. Sometimes they interact, sometimes nothing happens. Now let's try the other sets. Here's the ATST. I have to admit, the Ewok scream here is pretty funny. And finally, the Millennium Falcon. This set includes 4 smart minifigures and 4 tags, which creates a lot more possible interactions. The hyperdrive feature is especially fun. When you rotate the platform, the Falcon activates lights and sounds while you swoosh it around. Here the lights finally make sense. The fuel function is also amusing. Apparently the hyperfuel is unstable, and if you shake it too much the ship explodes. Luke can also perform lightsaber training using the rotating platform. Now let's talk about the feature I was most excited about, dueling. During the CES keynote and in other presentations, LEGO explained that smart bricks automatically form a network when they are close to each other. They can detect each other in 3-dimensional space, position, orientation and distance, which trigger interactions. So naturally we tried a dogfight with the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter. At first it seemed amazing. Hits were registered with sounds and lights, alarms were going off, explosions everywhere. But after a while something felt strange. Our aim was simply too perfect, and eventually we realized the problem. Aiming doesn't matter at all. You can point the ships literally anywhere. If the two builds are in the same room, you will get a hit. Honestly, that was very disappointing. This was the feature I was most excited about since the reveal, and right now it doesn't work as expected. Since the system is closed and there are no tags using the 3D sensing function yet, there's currently no way to properly use that capability. I think that was a huge missed opportunity for the launch sets. Now let's talk about the designs themselves. I actually don't think these sets look as bad as some people say. Yes, the Falcon is a bit chunky, but it's designed to be swooshable by a 9-year-old. Try doing that with the regular playset Falcon, and despite the compromises, it still has a good amount of interior detail. The X-Wing is a 6+ set. If you look at previous 6+ X-Wings, they were basically polybags. The ATST design also works well. Yes, the back is open, but during play you will mostly focus on the firing mechanism anyway. So I don't really mind the gaps from an aesthetic perspective. These are playsets, not UCS models. Nobody complains that brickheads aren't realistic either. What I do mind, however, is the constant blinking of smart brick. That's why I wish there were some covers hiding the brick in these sets. In the Falcon you can face it inward and the TIE Fighter wings partially hide it, but in other builds it's quite distracting. So let's try to summarize the experience with these 4 sets before the video becomes too long. Most people complained about the look of the sets, the gaps, also the fact that kids can already make their own pew pew sounds, so there's no real need for smart bricks to do that, and of course the price. I already talked about the design and the gaps earlier. Personally, I don't think those are the biggest issue. The blinking LED is far more distracting. I honestly think these sets would benefit from some sort of cover for the brick, not necessarily for aesthetic reasons, but simply to shield you from that LED. Now about the sounds. Yes, kids can absolutely make their own sounds, that's definitely true. Exactly 40 years ago I got this light and sound module in the Mobile Police Truck set. I was 6 years old at the time and I was completely blown away by it. I tried to put that module into every single build I made, it was easily my favorite feature. And this thing could only make 2 different sounds and 2 simple light patterns using that big chunky battery box. So I absolutely believe that light and sounds can be a great play feature, but the smart brick clearly has far more capabilities and potential than that old module ever had. And if you introduce a system like this, those capabilities really need to be used to their full extent. Looking at these sets, it feels like quite a lot was left on the table. We get many sounds, but only a few light effects and not enough interactions. For example, smart minifigures should be able to interact with each other naturally if there's a brick nearby, even without needing a specific tag. And considering their strong blinking, there are definitely not enough standard light effects to justify leaving it completely uncovered in most builds. And of course, there's the 3D positioning feature, which should have been the highlight of the launch experience. I mentioned this already in my reveal videos, but I'm not sure starting with Star Wars was the best decision here. When you use a major licensed theme, people has very strong expectations. They expect the sounds to match the movies, the interactions to feel authentic, and everything to work exactly as they imagine it. If this system had launched with something like City instead, there would have been much more creative freedom. Nobody has a very specific expectation about how a garbage truck or a police car should sound. I understand why LEGO chose a flagship IP, Star Wars definitely attracts attention. But if you launch a completely new system with such a big theme, then the experience really needs to showcase everything the system can do. All the fancy features should be fully implemented and working in order to have the best first impression. And unfortunately, I don't really see that here. These are fun playsets and we genuinely enjoyed playing with them, but they don't really represent the revolutionary step in LEGO history the Smart Brick reveal suggested. Right now, Smart Play feels like interactive sounds with a bit of light and some Easter eggs, interesting but not revolutionary at all. To me, this feels like a very careful first generation implementation of hardware that otherwise has huge potential. As for the pricing, some of these sets are definitely more expensive than comparable non-Smart Play sets, but in some cases the difference isn't actually that big. There are 5 compatible sets but only 3 that actually include the brick, and the largest set, the Millennium Falcon, doesn't come with one. You really shouldn't have to buy a $70 set just to fully use a $100 set. The Smart Brick really should be sold separately. So overall, as a technology, I'm still optimistic about Smart Play, simply because we've only seen a small fraction of what the system is capable of. At the same time, I'm also disappointed that some of the most anticipated features were not included in these launch sets. For now, these work well as Star Wars playsets for kids with some extra interactive features. Prices will eventually drop like with most LEGO sets, and then customers can decide if those extra features are worth it. And honestly, I'm actually glad these sets weren't launched globally yet. Hopefully, customer feedback will be taken into account and the wider release will include sets that really demonstrate what Smart Play can do. So folks, let me know what you think about the sets and the system. Let's talk about it in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe with notifications as more exciting LEGO videos are coming soon. See you next time, bye bye.